You're listening to the Mermaid Podcast here on WPOD-FM, Mermaid Radio. I'm Gary Guppy, and we hope you enjoy today's program.
Welcome to the Mermaid Podcast, where we dive deep into the magical world of mermaiding and all things aquatic. I'm your host, Mura Shira, and these are my co-hosts, Sierra Mermaid, and the merman most likely to be found passed out on the couch from eggnog, Merman Nathaniel. We would also like to welcome a special guest host for this episode, Chico D.
Whether you're a seasoned performer, hobbyist, or curious adventure seeker, this is the place for you. We'll be highlighting our fantastic community and what we're all about, making magic and living our best mermaid dreams.
Today, we'll be discussing an iconic mermaid movie that made waves in pop culture and mermaiding alike, just in time for its 36th year anniversary, Disney's 1989 movie, The Little Mermaid. Don't forget to follow us on TikTok and Blue Sky at The Mermaid Podcast, and join the pod on Discord to connect with our community, linked in the description. If you like what we do, please consider donating to our coffee to help us continue the podcast. Let's dive in.
Welcome, everyone, to a special episode of the Mermaid Podcast. Today, we'll be discussing the anniversary of what is quite possibly one of the most popular films in our community. One that has spanned several generations and continues to be a favorite among children and adults alike. I am, of course, talking about none other than The Little Mermaid. And joining us today is a man who knows more about the film than anyone else I know in my life. Please give a warm welcome to friend of the podcast, Chico D. Chico, how are you doing today?
Blub blub, Nate.
Perfect.
Glad to have you on the podcast,
Absolutely.
Chico.
Absolutely.
I think we should talk about how we each got introduced to The Little Mermaid, because it's such a classic movie and pervades pretty much every part of pop culture, really, from childhood toys to, like, the rides at the theme parks to even, like, the live-action Little Mermaid that was made recently in the last few years.
One could argue that this film could potentially be one of the most important films of all time. And I'm saying that with, like, zero hyperbole.
Didn't it, like, save Disney financially?
Yeah, it did.
I thought so.
Probably
Saved
go a
the
little...
animation division.
Yeah, it saved the animation division. We'll probably go a little bit more into that as the episode goes on. But, like, you know, not only did it save their animation division, but, like, it sent, like, ripples throughout pop culture as a whole. You know, you think about, like, a lot of the mermaid movies and TV shows that exist now, and you think, like, you know, this stuff probably wouldn't have existed if, like, The Little Mermaid didn't have mermaids in the public conscience back in 89, back in the 90s and whatnot.
Influences modern, like, very modern culture that's not even, like, having to do with mermaids. I know that, let me double check my quote, but I'm like 99% sure that Taylor Swift has a song that's titled But Daddy, I Love Him, quoting Ariel. Yes, it was,
It's really
yeah,
cool.
it came out in 2024 in the Tortured Poets department.
Alright, so how did you guys get introduced to the movies
I
then?
personally my family has always been huge Disney nerds, like, you know, watching all the movies and stuff. But when I was, like, you know, a baby, like under one, The Little Mermaid was apparently my favorite movie of all time. Like, I had to have it on at all hours of the day. This was, like, back when we had, like, box TVs, you know, like the staticky box
They were the
TVs.
best.
Yes, it's so nostalgic.
They're the greatest.
Yes, and
Absolutely.
I was
Can't-
fascinated by The Little Mermaid. Like, I don't know, I just love the music. I still have all my Barbie dolls from when I was a kid, and I probably have like 8 different Ariels with every outfit she wears in
Oh.
the freaking movies. So, like, I was obsessed. And I would say it's because she looked like me, because I have red hair, you know? And when I got older, it definitely became like, oh, this is like the Disney princess that looks most like me. Like, if I'm gonna dress up as Halloween, I already have the hair for her, you know? So it kind of became that, and that's definitely where my mermaid obsession started. It started with The Little Mermaid. It's so bad that even like the first mermaid tail I bought, I only bought it because it reminded me of Ariel. Like I've always wanted to look like Ariel down to the tail. And so when I was able to finally buy a mermaid tail, I bought a green tail.
That's so cute.
I
Yeah.
love that. I completely get it because it was a movie that was always played in my household or while I was like hanging out with my cousins. And it was that one and The Little Mermaid 2 Return to the Sea. Both of them were such a fundamental part of my childhood. And one of my earliest memories is watching those movies at my aunt's house while hanging out with my cousins. And it is a movie that really does stick with you. And now that we're into this hobby, it, like you said, it's such an influence that I even find myself listening to the soundtrack on my way to my commute working healthcare. I love it. Even though I'm not like a quote unquote Disney adult, the music is great. Even now, 36 years later, it still hits.
The music is just
Oh
so
yeah.
peppy, which we'll definitely touch on later, but Chico, how were you introduced to The Little Mermaid?
Oh, geez. I'm sure that I was introduced to the movie much younger, but my first living memory of seeing this movie was when I was 7 years old. I was just like being babysat by my oldest sister at the time, utterly entranced and sucked into the feeling and the hearing. I just like from that first scene where fish under the water, the score he goes is going down and down and down. Anything about musical terminology, but just like felt so good and just like the way it just like spoke, and then all of a sudden you see the first mer person come out and it just like the chorus kicks in. It was amazing. The whole movie got me with things like that, and it just like stuck with me. And I remember that just like for a while it was that I would just never stop playing in my house. I collected the comic books. I watched all the TV series on my terrible TV at the time. I was utterly entranced by it.
That's
That
beautiful.
Yeah.
is,
That is really beautiful. I love the way you described the opening as magical because I was
yes.
just watching the film again in preparation for this episode like a couple hours ago, and like just the way you described the intro is exactly like how I felt. Like just just the way we hear like the sailors talking about the mer people as if they're like this big myth, and then we see the fish just like going through the water, swimming past those whales and swimming past the sea anemones, and then as soon as the chorus hits, as the first like mer person shows up, it was like that was like the wow moment. That was the wow
Yes.
factor. That
Yes.
yeah,
It was I think like what especially like hit me so hard is that it's just like the kind of film you just didn't see at the time. I'm like not in theaters, not really in theaters. I was too young to see certain movies. He's like Lion King or Aladdin. This is like my first exposure proper to Disney and just like to theatrical movies in general, even if I was watching on a VHS tape. A fairly bad direct to TV specials. Animation was choppy.
like the old golden age, golden films era, like direct to video movies. I know
Absolutely.
exactly what you're talking about. Those movies are ass.
Yeah.
Uh,
Honestly, I think the way that you described the opening, I haven't seen the movie, I think in probably a year. I think I watch it every year at some point, probably during the summer. But as you were describing it, even though I haven't seen the movie in a while, I could see the scene playing in my head, and I'm like, yeah, that's such an iconic opening. And it really does just feel magical when you're watching it. And I also think the Little Mermaid was kind of the first thing in pop culture to make mermaids something geared towards kids, to be honest, which, of course, The Little Mermaid, that movie is for all ages, but it's presented in a way that's digestible and appropriate for children. Because if you look at movies that came before it, maybe has mermaids portrayed in a scary light, in more of a siren way, in more of a, like, kidnap sailors and eat them way. Or it has mermaids portrayed in an overly sensual way, like seducing men, which is very in line
Splash.
with, yeah, which is very in line with mythology about mermaids. But The Little Mermaid, to me, looking at history and pop culture, was a turning point in viewing mermaids as things that could be geared towards children. And now, of course, we see mermaid themed kids everything, like clothes, like little toys, like beach towels, like like there's just so many mermaid themed, not even necessarily Disney, but now just like generally mermaid cutesy themed things that are appropriate for kids.
It's a really interesting point that you make there. That makes a lot of sense. And it's because I think this is one of the first films in general to actually give a glimpse at the personality of a mermaid outside of like their mythological role when you think about it. Even though, yes, Ariel is very much obsessed with like humanity and the role of humans, when you compare it to earlier mermaid, not really characters, like either objects to be admired by either often male main characters or dangerous creatures. This is like the first movies to actually give a sense of, for lack of a better word, towards a mer person and focusing on their quality, which is what I think definitely helps, approachable, compared to mer media.
It definitely is more digestible and more approachable, and just like it's something that the whole family can sit down and watch, which is like pretty much one of Disney's central tenets, especially back then. Like kids' movies that are made for families, when you go back and watch them as an adult and you catch things that you didn't realize before that are geared towards the adults watching them, I definitely think that this was like the beginning of Disney trying to make these more accessible for families to enjoy together. So I kind of want to shift the subject a little bit, and The Little Mermaid obviously is most known as Disney's 1989 movie, but it is also the same title of Hans Christian Andersen's tragic fairy tale. I think it would be interesting to kind of compare the two, see where Disney draws inspiration, see where Disney changes things, because of course the original fairy tale is not appropriate for children.
It could be
I find
that the original fairy tale is breakup song.
Yeah.
That is true.
Jeez, I didn't think of it like that. It is kind of interesting because I think key thing that sort of conjoins the two of them together in a very unintentional way would probably be like queer representation. Because historically, people have speculated that Hans Christian Andersen wrote the story as sort of like a vent piece, or as Chico put it, a breakup song about a man that he had a crush on but was distraught because he wed somebody else. He was historically bisexual. He did write in his journal that he found himself attracted to women and men, and he felt ashamed of that, which, when you think about it, also kind of plays into the story a little bit, because if I remember correctly, in the original, when the mermaid goes up on land, they talk about like how walking for her felt like she was walking on knives, which,
Yes.
I don't know, when you think about it, it is kind of a similar situation for Hans, where it's like, oh, he has like these feelings that he's trying to like repress. He has to like stay in line with this societal image, like he's walking on knives. But there's not only that, but there's also what the 1989 film did, and I think that's largely thanks to Howard Ashman's contributions. We'll get into this a bit more later on, but like a lot of people, a lot of trans people especially connect with this film because they can kind of relate to Ariel's struggles, and they saw a lot of the drama she went through being very similar to like what they probably went through
Yeah.
growing up in like a very conservative family that doesn't accept this sort of thing. You know, maybe there was like a violent family figure that did overreact to this news or something to that degree. I'm not trans, so I can't really speak on their behalf, but you think about it, like the 1989 film is essentially like the ideal happy ending for a lot of like queer people. You know, the idea that they can happily live the life that they want to live, and their parental figure, their parents, can accept them for that and love them for who they
I
are.
completely get that. The original Hans Christian Andersen was really such a story of loneliness and depression. And there is a direct quote that's from The Little Mermaid originally that stated, but a mermaid has no tears, and therefore she suffers so much more. And that was that overall
Right.
arcing theme almost. I mean, even at the end, she died. She was turned to sea foam.
She turned into
Yes.
foam.
And
Because the prince ends up
Yeah.
marrying
Yes.
someone else.
And she
yeah,
couldn't kill
no matter
him.
what, she was never going to be
Yeah.
happy
And so-
because she either had to kill him or she was going to be killed. And I have such a love for that original story, but I also appreciate that Disney version so much more because at the end of the day, both characters and Hans Christian Andersen himself, who the character was truly based off of, it was more of the ending that was deserved versus how it actually felt in the moment.
I'm a big fan, generally, of
Right.
happy endings
Yes.
because I feel like real life is hard enough.
Exactly.
Sometimes it's nice, especially when you're
Yeah.
indulging in fantasy, to believe that there really could be happy
Yeah,
endings.
and it was such a vent piece, but I do admit that the fantasy was a bit enhanced in its own way by allowing the
Mhm.
character that was meant to be him to have that happiness. I appreciate that.
There is always going to be a value to that erase in that, like, it represents trueness to the life that Hans Christian
Yes.
Andersen, and it is still a valuable spirit to learn from, just like how life had been for him versus, say, Howard Ashman helping as a third director on the film later. Those influences right there, not just like tragedy for tragic sakes, also a statement on the life Hans Christian Andersen was.
Yes, cannot agree with you more.
We are going to be going even more in depth into this wonderful movie and talking about specific impacts that it had on not only society in general, but the mermaid community specifically. And we'll be talking about plenty of trivia facts about the movie.
You're listening to WPOD FM Mermaid Radio. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors.
Hey, Dad, how come we're sitting up here?
Well, son, when I was your age, my parents would take me to this shipping yard to watch the cargo ships carrying delicious, frosty Arctic cola dock into port. Hey, look, here comes one now. This has been a family tradition.
What?
I said this has been a family tradition for many years.
You had too many beers?
What?
Treat yourself to a holiday classic this season with an ice-cold bottle of Arctic Cola. A smooth blend of 7 different tropical fruit flavors in a soft beverage that's sure to delight the taste buds.
Hope you boys got enough to share.
Santa!
Oh. Have a...
What?
Try an icy Arctic Cola today. Your thirst will thank you. Here in Joey's world, Joey and Goopy are getting ready for Christmas. You ready for the big sleep before Christmas, Goop?
I sure am, Joey. I can't wait for Santa Claus to come down the chimney and bring us presents. Look, he's coming down now. Finster the Goblin Shark!
Shame on you, Finster. These limited edition popcorn shrimp from Atlantic Joe's are only for Santa.
With all those festive colors, it's no wonder he finds them so irresistible. Oh, I can't bear to look at that face, Joey. Why don't we let him have some, just this once?
Well, it is the season of giving. Ah, what the heck. Dig in, Finster. Celebrate the holidays this season with a bucket of new festive popcorn shrimp from Atlantic Joe's. Breaded and fried to perfection with fun red, white, and green colors that are sure to bring festive joy to dinner time.
Merry Christmas, Joey. Merry Christmas to you too, bud.
We are back and feeling much more ready to take this discussion into a less depressing, dark place and into something that's much more bright, colorful, and joyous. We are jumping right back in and making a splash into the history of the movie.
Yeah, so how did this movie first come about, Chico?
The first inklings of the film came about in about 86 when Ron Clements and John Musker, both two very young directors who had just finished work on Great Mouse Detective at Disney, had pitched two films, one for a very young Treasure Planet and the adaptation of The Little Mermaid. They presented to their then CEO Jeffrey Katzen, and he chose The Little Mermaid and tossed out Planet into the garbage until many decades later. They both worked on a few early drafts of the script in 1986, and around the time their final script got approved, Howard Ashman was getting involved into the film, having just worked on the upcoming Oliver and Company for the Disney.
Such a great movie.
Yeah. He brought a very different energy to the film, very non-traditional compared to a lot of other directors who were described as being very stuck on the idea of what Walt Disney would have done, because the studio had been stuck in a bit of a rut ever since Walt Disney's death back in 1966, where they were very much trying to follow in the footsteps of Disney. And so it was the coming of a lot of new blood that reinvigorated new thoughts and ideas into the studio itself.
Very talented individual from the sounds of it. Like, I remember watching some of the Little Mermaid documentaries you sent me and just hearing his cohorts talking about him and like how big of an influence he played. Like, when they got to the part where they were talking about making the music and how he essentially like acted out Poor Unfortunate Souls like all by himself, that like I could just like visualize that like in my head, like all the incredible like flamboyant movements, like having him do that all himself. And God, even like Pat Carroll, I remember hearing her say that she would listen to him recite Ursula's lines, and whenever he made like an inflection that she really liked, she would be like, "Hey, can I steal that?" And he would just say like, "Oh, I was hoping you would."
It's awesome. And he's somebody who, like, clearly from what Chico DeMar was saying, the fact that he is behind so many of what I consider to be some of Disney's greatest, Oliver and Company, Treasure Planet, The Little Mermaid, they're amazing movies. And it's just crazy to know that that guy played a part in the behind the scenes of all of them.
He definitely was a huge influence. The film had wrapped up and people were going to see it in theaters. It was said that he cried that day with Alan Menken and saying that this film is going to outlast me. I mean, tragically, he was right about that. He died shortly after 1891, before the premiere of Beauty and the Beast, was his final film. He almost fully completed while he was alive. The studio dedicated a little memorial at the end of the credits. It's to Beauty and the Beast, which says, "To Howard Ashman and the man who gave a mermaid a voice and a beast his soul."
It's beautiful. And he really, truly did leave
Absolutely.
behind such a beautiful legacy.
Absolutely. I especially love the work that he and Alan Menken did on the soundtrack. Like, I was listening, obviously I said I watched the film earlier, but I was listening to the soundtrack while watching it. Like, just, like, not even, like, the main songs, but, like, hearing the background tracks of, like, when we first see Ariel and how it's, like, very, like, nice and uplifting, and, hearing Ursula's music when we first hear her, and it's, like, it's all, like, very low, like, brass instruments and percussions, and, it's the kind of music that lets you know, like, oh, this is the villain, without, like, outright stating it. And, the whole movie is just full of stuff like that. Triton has, like, his own music whenever he's in the throne room. Eric has his own. It's all, like, really beautiful stuff. And that's not even getting into, like, the main music as well. They almost cut part of your world from the final
Yes.
film.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, that was one of the most embarrassing stories of Katzenberg, though it's not his only embarrassing story from the film, but that's for other times.
Right.
When they showed an early work print of Little Mermaid, where it was all just storyboards, they had shown it to a test audience of children, and I've seen this work print, and it's all very beautiful, but the problem is that when you're showing a child black and white stills, it is not always the same as what they will see when you get to the final product. The thing is with the animation is that, unlike, say, a live action movie, you start recording, and oftentimes storyboards come later into the process, but you still have really rough material still in there. With an animated film, storyboards come first, and so oftentimes these things look very, very crude. And in Little Mermaid's case, some of these drawings were really crude. And so during the screening, one child just got distracted and started picking up a bunch of popcorn that he dropped. Katzenberg was just so displeased at the fact that this kid was just not even paying attention to the movie anymore. And he was like, all right, this song is just boring. We gotta cut it. And nobody could convince him. And Ron Clements couldn't convince him. John Musker couldn't convince him. Howard Ashman couldn't convince him to put it back. It took Glenn Keane, Ariel's lead animator, to started working on some early pencil tests that were showing Ariel in motion, moving. And to get that done in a comparatively short amount of time, this movie is full of rushed animation, but it's like the quality is incredible.
Real.
There are actually several scenes worth of animation cut before the draft of the film. Ursula's intro has different cuts that I never noticed as a kid. Like when I saw the 1989 April, and there are missing shots everywhere spliced around. Eric had a whole scene removed is from the film, several different scenes of animation, and that was like nearly complete, all gone. And like, oh, by the time I'm like, the end isn't complete yet because they were so busy constantly rewriting.
Right, yeah. I think Katzenberg said that he
It's a
wanted
crazy
the
statement.
ending to be more like Die Hard, if I remember correctly.
It's crazy to hear.
Yes, he just came in one, just said, make it more like Die Hard, and nobody knew what exactly he meant by it. And so,
He wanted Ariel to just, like, stalk an office building with an MP5 to try and take down a terrorist.
What an
guess
interesting turn.
yes, that would certainly be a different film. But, I mean, from that statement, the animators came up with the ending where Ursula is a giant and starts destroying stuff. And even then, that scene was supposed to be even better in the original April '89 work print. when they finally came up with that. She was going to have a scene where her tentacles come out of the water and like they'd morph into her face and be all scary. Then she'd have scenes where she'd be throwing lightning down on just like playing with the waves on the ocean, on the shore. So much stuff that just got removed. They were just running out of time.
I mean, I guess with what has been said, they kind of did go a little bit into the Die Hard route with Ursula's ending, with what we have of it, at least, specifically her being shish kebabbed. That's a little Die Hard-esque.
Crazy.
Yeah. Originally, it was going to be,
I remember hearing that.
which did actually make it into 2, believe it or not. Eric just like tosses the thing right into her throat. Oh, which is like, I don't know if Kingdom Hearts staff knew about that end, but it's certainly a cool callback.
Very much so. I'm just learning all of this while I listen to you, and I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, that is so true. It's crazy that I never even thought twice about those things.
That's bonus fact too. Ooh, this is something that you notice on almost any watch, and I almost never noticed until I saw the work prints of like early January 1989. But during the shipwreck scene, this is just like fun fact that almost you'd never guess, as they actually combined 2 different scenes together, either from the 2 different work prints when they made to the final film. So originally, Flounder was always going to get stuck into the window of the sunken ship, until eventually they changed that later on, later cut of the film, where Ariel and Flounder go through the roof of the ship, through like a grate standing out through the, one of those ship grates that go into the interior of it. And in the final movie, like they changed their minds about how they combined the 2 different things of Flounder getting stuck in the window again. But the thing is, the way the scene was storyboarded, there is a point where, if you remember the scene where Ariel loses her bag for just a second and the shark is coming in biting the floor, or Ariel grabs the bag and starts going upwards and then the shark follows her up. This is actually a remnant of the earlier cut of the movie where but if you watch the final film, you'll see that hallway again going through the window. It's just one of those things you would just never notice. It's unless you've seen that work print.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did read online before filming
That's nuts.
that shark, Flounder, was supposed to, in the movie originally, have a little bit of a fight scene later on and defeat the shark. And I found it so funny because in the second one, he defeated Pipsqueak. And I was like, oh my god, it's like they brought that full circle.
Alright, so if you guys don't know, Harold is like from an earlier cut.
Oh yes, I love him.
Not even like he didn't even get fully. I don't think he's got storyboards and concept art, but he is a deleted character from The Little Mermaid, and they deleted him because the movie was going over budget, yada yada yada. They didn't have time to put him in, basically. But he was a favorite of the film's directors because of his nerdy appearance. He was really scrawny, had like a hunched kind of posture, and he had these huge glasses, okay? And this like stand-up, like totally like Wilson, like the volleyball from Castaway, like that hair. And he was a favorite of the directors because his nerdiness reminded them of themselves. So it was kind of like a little insert character from the directors. But he was featured in a scene sometime before she meets Ariel, and he like wants to make a deal with her, and basically he wanted to like be able to impress the ladies, and like be muscular since he's like really scrawny, and he ends up not fulfilling his bargain with her. And I think I'm reading here, he needed to bring her a fresh water lily in 3 days, but she tricked him because water lilies were out of season, so he couldn't find one. And when 3 days passed, he was left to Ursula's power and transformed into one of the polyps that Ariel sees when she swims into Ursula's lair. And by the end of the movie, like when Ursula is defeated, it was supposed to show him turn back into a merman from being a polyp. But poor guy.
Oh,
The Sebastian was
He
supposed
was-
to be
believe it or
British
not, he-
originally as well.
Yeah, you know, Disney kept trying to do that British animal buddy thing for like twice again. They tried to do that with Iago in Aladdin after, and then they eventually got it when they did Zazu in
And that's really weird since like both of those are set in places
Animal
that
Friend
experienced
for like the longest time.
colonization by the British. So maybe not the best decision.
Yeah.
And finally, we're going to
Okay,
close
good,
this out
good.
by talking about
That was
the
important.
impact
Alright,
that the
back in
Little
character.
Mermaid has had on just the mermaid community in general. I mean, the Little Mermaid introduced us to this whole aesthetic that kind of has a little bit taken over the mermaid community. It's become a little bit of a symbol in that the red hair and the green tail and the purple seashell bra look. Like, that's just a classic. You see that, like, in party mermaids, like, when they want to evoke the imagery of Ariel and, like, you know, the Disney princess vibe.
You know, it's kind of interesting that you bring that up
Yes.
because if I remember correctly, Ariel was supposed to be blonde in some of the
Yes.
original drafts because, yeah, because like nobody thought like a red-haired mermaid would sell because like mermaids were always usually just blonde before then. So it's
Yes,
kind
and
of
that's all
interesting
because
how
of the Little Mermaid, to
now
be
it
honest.
seems like it
Even
is
you
just
see
sort of
in
the default
generic
mermaid
party
hair these
mermaid,
days.
like, you know, like mermaid decorations and stuff, they'll give the mermaid red hair, and it's like they're
funny
not
how
trying to get sued by Disney, so of course they don't do the whole shebang, but like they're definitely trying to get that vibe and cash in on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
it's hilarious too because the reason they didn't want Ariel to be blonde was because, that's a stereotype. Everyone has done blonde mermaids. We just did one with Splash a few years earlier, and now the shoe is on the other foot, where all mermaids are now redheads. It's
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
And I've noticed that it is such a big thing, and no hate, the girls that get it, but I feel like every time I've been around other
Agreed.
mermaids and there's karaoke involved, part of your world, somebody's doing it. I think that in itself was
Yeah.
a major
Yeah.
influence.
I digress.
Unless it's me, then you guys are going to be hearing Blink 182. Anyway.
Yes.
shall be under the sea for me.
But yeah, just the influence in the community as a whole. I mean, you're always going to see people at parties just dressing up as Ariel. You're going to, or even like, or even
Yes,
if you're
every
like going
time.
out mermaiding in public, you know, a curious
Oh,
kid's
they'll
going
call
to come
you
up
Ariel
to you.
or ask
One
if
of
you
the
know
questions
Ariel.
you got to expect.
Every time.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Another
they'll ask if you know
impact
Ariel,
that
and
the
it's like
movie
you
has
gotta
had on
like,
the mermaid
but you gotta like
community
play it up
is
somehow.
the
You gotta-
popularization of cicada octopus bodied mers, you know, like with Ursula. And even though she's depicted as a villain, and so is her, I think it's her sister in the sequel, they're both depicted as villains.
Yes.
Which, anyway, I have choices about that. No, yeah.
Yes.
Like, it definitely did
God forbid a
make that
big girl
popular.
boss, right?
Want to know something funny? The funny thing is her race of mer people were actually given in the TV show. Oh, they were called the pins originally. Cicada is just sort of a name that came up during the age from ancient web forums and got popularized there. But by Disney, she's technically called an octopin.
Technically, she's not an octopus
I
at
mean, I
all
prefer-
because she's got 6 tentacles, not 8.
There we go.
Her
Fair.
arms.
That is a fair point. Now that can be the question that people can
Chime in
debate
the comments.
after hearing this episode.
You guys gotta spout
Is
off in the
Ursula an
comments. Tell
octopus or
us,
not?
Is Ursula octopus
I want to know
or
your guys'
squid?
opinions.
Well, whatever she is, she was. Well, whatever
No,
she was,
here's-
she was certainly more cost effective.
Well, here's the real question. And octopus tentacles have brain.
True.
And if Ursula is an octopus, does her human
I wish
arms
they
have
didn't kill her. We
brains?
could have asked her.
Oh, now that's a really weird
It is,
question.
yeah.
Ooh, that's gonna keep me up tonight.
When she died during her scene, one of her arms goes and tries to grab for
This
Eric
is true.
before she died.
I'm
Was
picking
it
up
one
with
last
Orlando.
grasp of the brain in trying to grab at him?
She
See,
was.
that must have been why she was such a girl boss. She had all of those brains. She was big thinking.
Disney's sequels and prequels to their animated films can be hit or miss, and it's often because they don't have the budget that the first one had. The budget, the team, the marketing, etc. But I actually am a big fan of the sequel and the prequel to The Little Mermaid because I think it expands on the world and the story in a really meaningful way, and I don't know, it lets you live in that world for a little bit longer, introduces new characters, brings back some old ones. Of course, you see in the sequel, you see Ariel and Eric's daughter, and basically she's having an opposite Ariel moment. She's been living on the land her whole life, but she wants to go out to sea. So that was also an interesting dynamic to introduce in the sequel. And as for the prequel, just getting to learn about Ariel's life before the first movie, that was definitely really interesting. It is. Very slept on.
The animation in the third movie is especially gorgeous. Like, like in the second film, yeah, in the second film, for whatever reason, they muted the colors really heavily, and it kind of makes the movie look a little ugly, if I'm being
An
honest.
unpopular opinion,
like, in the
the
third
second one's
movie-
my favorite and always has been.
I have things to say about the second one, especially because, oh, that film, I both love it and dislike it for many ways, if only because there's so much potential in it.
Oh, absolutely. But that
Right.
film could spit in my face and I would say thank you still. I love that movie.
Like, when I was growing up, one of the things that I would always catch the Little Mermaid TV show on, and I remember loving it so much, primarily because I love, the underwater world and on there. And my goodness, watched that show in years until recently. A lot of weird stuff that goes on in that series. Like, there's at least 2 different horror and like an episode where a T-Rex goes underwater.
Yeah, those shows were
Or
weird.
never
Same
mind.
with the Aladdin shows. They all were
when
kind of
Flounder
funky.
gets,
Still good.
never mind when Flounder reenacts and by getting bitten by a werefish.
But I will
Something
give it
like
to
that.
them. That
Of
show
course.
did show a deaf mermaid who practiced sign language. And that was one of my first experiences of really understanding that. It's one of like my earliest memories of understanding such a different life than mine in that kind of sense. And it's crazy because it came from a TV show about mermaids, something completely mythological. And I remember thinking it was like the most beautiful thing. And I thought it was so lovely how they learned to communicate. And like I said, the last time I saw that was at least 20 years ago. And I still just think it was such a beautiful thing for its time. And now.
Do you know the
Gabriella.
backstory? Yeah,
I
know the
do.
backstory
I do.
behind
Do you want to share it though,
Gabriella?
Nathaniel?
I think Chico would want to share it. Go ahead, dude.
Gabriella was a fan of the show during the season of the TV series, and she made her debut. She was given an honor into like the series itself, because she would write to the television executives at the time through email and such, and it was such an incredible gesture of the team to actually include her into the show itself as her own mermaid. And tragically, she passed away during the production of the second season, but she really made an incredible impact on everyone, even like to this day. Anyone who's seen the show, seeing such like amazingly gentle representation of someone who's deaf on a TV series at the time, for a preschool TV series at the time, I'm no less, as is just like pretty wild when you think about it.
You know, my sister actually works as an ALS interpreter. I might have to show her some footage from the cartoon to see how accurate the ASL is animated, just out of curiosity.
I heard that it is pretty accurate for what they could do, but I mean, I'm not fluent in any sort of sign language, so I can't say for certain, but that's just what I've heard since from Fun Facts ages ago. But still, it really was such a lovely thing to see, especially as a child. And I think that could go for a lot of the Disney shows, for sure. I was going to say that people, have called Disney woke these days, and it's completely. Disney's always been very inclusive.
Yeah,
But we're not gonna get, you know,
yeah.
I won't have people
I
fighting
got-
me where it'll be chill.
Well, they can and heck they want on to be family friendly with it.
Yeah.
Right.
They doesn't the fact that it did happen, and Disney has had that sort of already had that a bit of wokeness at the time.
I think it's about time we addressed the whale in the room that is the live action remake.
I was actually a big fan of it. I did like the new songs that they added. I especially loved Eric's song. I think it was so cool to give him a song. I mean, I think more of the Disney princes need songs. It was absolutely perfect. I cried listening to
Yeah.
Part of Your World.
I agree. And honestly, Miss Berry, she killed it. I think that her voice was perfect for
Yes.
Ariel.
I think she was
Yes.
great as
She
Ariel.
was incredible.
Not to mention Melissa McCarthy as Ursula. Like, she also just absolutely killed that role. It was definitely a more like comedic take on the character, but like I liked it.
I think it was fun.
I think if we're going to do live actions, they should be saying something different than the original one. And I think overall that the live action Little Mermaid was trying to do things differently than the animated version. It just had different nuances on the characters and different takes, and then different focuses of the songs. In adding the new songs, it really expanded the movie in a different way. Yeah. The only thing that I will not forgive it for is that we did not get Ariel's sparkly purple dress at the end. Will not forgive it.
Yeah,
Yes, that's my only complaint. Otherwise, I love it. They all made the
It's like the
characters
most-
their own. They added things, and the only thing that we can really say that they took away was that beautiful dress.
I got
yeah,
pretty strong feelings about the film.
yeah, me too.
It's not like of the Disney live action films, it is one of the better ones because Beauty
Yup.
and the Beast, a film that I really not like. It is not making fun of the source material. Well, I do really like Miss Berry. He is incredible, and her and Eric that was added to the film, I think their chemistry is strong. But it's everyone else that I kind of weaker in this film
Yeah,
because like dislike Melissa McCarthy as Ursula. Like she was restrained by kind of retracing Pat Carroll's steps. She has one scene in the movie that I feel like is really hers, but every other scene is a little bit too much just like her kind of retracing Pat Carroll. Oh, which I just found a bit of a shame. I don't like how they depicted the animal
fair.
characters.
oh god,
They
don't
are
even get
kinda
me started
scary
on the
looking,
animal
huh?
characters.
Have you noticed that there are only 3 anthropomorphic animals in this film? Because, like, when you see Under the Sea, none of the animals look like, Flounder or Sebastian with anthropomorphic attributes. They're all just regular sea creatures, and there's no chorus in Under the Sea anymore.
They didn't
Or-
want to animate them.
And then when you get to Kiss the Girl, it's only the 3 animals singing that song. And it's like, once you notice,
Yeah.
you notice that, like, hey, Hey, why is it that only these three animals are talking? Like, that
Yeah,
bugs the...
exactly.
Yeah. I mean, like, and that's just what bugs me. I like a lot of the new ideas that it tries. So much that's still of the old is getting mixed in. And that's just my feelings about the...
That's kind of like the same issues that I have with it as well. It's like, I don't know, it really wants to remake the original, but it doesn't want to commit to like the
Yeah.
cartoonist that the original had.
Live action movie aside, I think we can all agree that The Little Mermaid has held up as one of the most popular mermaid pieces of media ever created.
Very much so.
Absolutely.
It made a big splash.
You're listening to WPOD FM Mermaid Radio. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. This holiday season, gather the family around the TV for the most festive television special of the year.
Humanity is a blight upon this wretched planet. They don't deserve Christmas.
Captain Nemo and the crew of the Nautilus embark on a journey to rid the world of Christmas. But not everyone is on board with this plan.
Good Captain, surely you don't mean to steal away all that is jolly and good in the world from those who are on the nice list?
I am not what you call a man on the nice list. I have done with society entirely for reasons which I alone have the right to appreciate. I do not, therefore, obey its traditions, and I desire you never allude to them before me again.
Embark on a journey full of tension and suspense, starring Ocean Shells as Captain Nemo.
See here, good Captain, as is visibly present. Christmas does not come from ribbons, tags, packages, boxes, or even bags. Why, Christmas can't even be found in a store.
Yes, perhaps you are right, old friend. What if Christmas meant a little more? What if, perchance, some small actions in a cruel world are all it takes to make a difference? What if, perchance, Oh, damn it all to hell, I can't do this anymore!
Cut! Oh, what's going on? What's the big deal?
What is this script? What sort of writers are you hiring these days? This is nothing but derivative trite. I wouldn't read this to my kids as a bedtime story, let alone use it in a major television production.
I don't understand. What's wrong with it?
The wording is just utterly redundant. You can't just use perchance like it's some napkin to reuse and toss at your leisure. I'm beginning to wonder if you people even know the meaning of it.
Look, why don't you just ad-lib it, huh? I mean, you're a professional. You don't need me to direct you on every itty-bitty little thing.
Between this phone book you call a script and that frozen kelp commercial, I'd say there's too much directing going on here. Are you directing? Is the cameraman directing? I can't tell anymore.
Alright, look. You've had a really rough day today, so just take a deep breath. We'll do it from the top.
We can't take it from the top. We can't take it anywhere. There's too many distractions. I can't concentrate on this environment. And that guy over there, he keeps blinking too much. It's throwing me off. You! Quit blinking so much! You know what? I don't need this. I brought War of the Shores to the radio waves in my heyday, for Poseidon's sake. I'm out of here.
You can't just leave. You signed a contract.
Listen, buddy. I have a fish stick commercial in about 3 hours, and I refuse to be late.
Ocean, come on. No, don't do this. Ocean! Ocean!
Oh, what the heck. I need the money.
A very Nautilus Christmas. Coming soon on the Fish Network.
Alright, it's time for Community Corner.
Like always, we have our usual weekly stuff. Chico here has his art streams on Mondays, and I got my game streams on Fridays. If you guys are interested, if you're in the server, be sure to join our respective clubs and get in on that. Get in on some of that action, on some of that fun.
We are, especially as we go into the new year, Happy New Year to everyone in advance. But as we go into the new year, we are looking for more volunteer artists and voice actors for our commercials. You may have noticed that we're mixing in some more new voices, and that is by design. We want the commercials that we have on the podcast to be a collaborative thing with the community. If you want to be involved in voice acting, go ahead and check out our Blue Sky or our link tree, and you can find the links to send us your information if you either want to make art for the cover of one of the episodes or participate in the making of the commercials.
And speaking of fairy tale happy endings, I did want to say a quick congratulations to Merman Thomas and Merman Andrew, who did get married just a few days ago. Congratulations, you two. And we at the podcast here, we do very much want to wish all of you a happy holidays with whatever you may be celebrating. We hope that you enjoy the season. Woohoo!
And we also want to give a huge thank you to Chico D for being a guest host on the podcast. He's near and dear to our hearts, making us great art and being just so supportive of the podcast. And we're really glad to have had his expertise and just general discussion and thoughts and amazing personality on the podcast for this episode. So thank you, Chico.
Hi there, I'm Chico D. I write a webcomic about mermaids and a story about the world of merpeople. Story arc is about how 3 mermaids, it's their booze stolen by bandits, join the adventures of Fiona, Lucy Stiles, and Cookie Darling as they fight through rough and toughs in fun mermaid blowouts, underwater action and comedy, silly shenanigans here and there. Thanks again.
Thanks for joining us for this month's episode of the Mermaid Podcast.
Tune in for our new episode next month, or should we say next year, as the next time we'll see you is in 2026.
As always, don't forget to get on your cell phones and follow us on TikTok and Blue Sky at the Mermaid Podcast, and join our wonderful Discord community. Happy splashing!
We'd like to thank our coffee donors that have made this month's episode possible: Ariadne, Isla, and Elizabeth. If you enjoyed this month's episode and want to hear more from us, consider donating to our coffee, linked in the description. Every amount counts and helps pay for our recording software and maintenance fees. Without our coffee donors, we couldn't do what we do. From the bottom of our hearts, thank you.
This has been the Mermaid Podcast here on WPOD FM Mermaid Radio. I'm Gary Guppy, and we hope to catch you all next time.